You finally started saying no. You started leaving the group chat early. You started declining the favors that drained you, the conversations that left you hollow, the relationships that took without ever giving back. And now you feel guilty. Now you wonder if you have become cold. Now the same people who used to overwhelm you are calling you distant, and you are not sure whether they are wrong or whether you are slowly turning into someone you do not recognize. This is the trap that almost no one warns you about. The moment you finally learn to protect your peace, you discover that the people who benefited from you having no peace will tell you that you are pushing them away. And a small voice inside you will agree with them, because you have spent your entire life believing that love is measured in availability, that care is measured in self-sacrifice, that a closed door is a kind of betrayal. So you face a choice that feels impossible. Either you keep the door open and watch your peace bleed out through it, or you close the door and watch your relationship starve on the other side. Either you remain porous and exhausted, or you become fortified and alone. The ancients knew this dilemma. They watched men oscillate between the same two extremes you are oscillating between now. Men who gave themselves away until there was nothing left to give. Men who walled themselves off until there was no one left to wall off. The Stoics rejected both, not because they were soft and not because they were hard, because they understood that peace is not the absence of people, and isolation is not the same as protection. They built something more sophisticated, an inner architecture that allowed them to remain engaged with the world, available to the people who mattered, useful in their communities, while also being utterly impossible to destabilize from the outside. They called it the inner citadel, and they meant something very specific by it. They did not mean a tomb. They did not mean a hiding place. They meant a fortress strong enough to live in, a place from which you could go out, do your work, love the people in front of you, and return at the end of the day with your sovereignty intact. This is the project: to become the kind of person whose peace cannot be stolen by a difficult email, a needy friend, a hostile stranger, or the chronic background noise of a world that has lost the ability to leave anyone alone. And to do this without becoming the kind of person who can no longer be reached. The first mistake people make when they begin to protect their peace is to confuse peace with quiet. They think that if they could just remove all the difficult people, all the demanding obligations, all the noise, peace would naturally arrive. So they prune, they cancel, they retreat, and they discover, often slowly, that the silence they fought so hard for has its own kind of weight. That a life with no one to disappoint is also a life with no one to love. This is the tomb, the peace of the disengaged, the stillness of a man who has stopped participating in his own life. The Stoics had no interest in this. None of them lived it. Not Marcus, who governed an empire. Not Seneca, who tutored a tyrant. Not Epictetus, who taught daily until his death. Not Musonius Rufus, who insisted that the philosopher's first duty was to be useful, not aloof. Not Cato, who threw himself into the politics of a collapsing republic when retreat would have been so much safer. Not Zeno, who taught in the Agora, the most public space in Athens, deliberately exposed to crowds and questioners and interruption. These were not men in caves. These were men in the street, and yet they were, by every account, the most internally settled men anyone around them had ever met. How? Because they understood what peace actually is. Peace is not the absence of disturbance. It is the presence of an interior so steady that disturbance does not reach it. The world will always be loud. People will always be needy. Crises will always arrive. You cannot solve any of this by withdrawal. You can only solve it by becoming the kind of person whose calm is no longer outsourced to circumstances. Pierre Hadot, the great historian of ancient philosophy, observed that for the Stoics, philosophy was never a retreat from life. It was a way of being in life differently. The spiritual exercises they practiced, the meditations, the visualizations, the daily examinations, were not meant to shield them from the world. They were meant to forge an inner constitution sturdy enough to remain themselves inside the world. This changes everything about how you think about protecting your peace. You stop asking, how do I keep people out? You start asking, how do I become unconquerable on the inside? You stop building walls, you start building a center. And from that center, you can do something almost no one in modern life can do anymore. You can be fully present with another human being, give them your attention, hear them completely, even let them inconvenience you, and still walk away unbruised. This is the difference between the man with a fortress and the man with a wall. The wall keeps everyone out, including the people he loves. The fortress keeps him steady, so he can let the right people in. If peace is an inner condition, then boundaries are not the walls that produce it. Boundaries are the practical consequence of already having it. This is a crucial reversal. Most people try to manufacture peace by enforcing boundaries. The Stoic move is the opposite. You cultivate peace first, and the right boundaries emerge from it as naturally as light emerges from a fire. But what does this look like in practice? Look at Cato the Younger, a man famous for an almost ridiculous severity towards himself. He slept on hard surfaces, ate plain food, walked barefoot in winter. And yet contemporaries describe him as warm with his friends, patient with his slaves, generous with his political adversaries until the moment they crossed an ethical line. His boundary was not a personality trait, it was a principle, and the principle was held without resentment. This is the first thing to understand. The healthy boundary is held without resentment. Resentment is the tell. If you say no to someone and then spend the next 3 hours rehearsing imaginary arguments with them in your head, your boundary is not yet anchored in peace. It is anchored in fear. You are still trying to win something from them. Their approval, their understanding, their permission to have said no in the first place. Cleanthes, the second head of the Stoa, worked as a water carrier at night to fund his philosophical studies during the day. When mocked for his poverty, he did not flinch. He did not over-explain. He did not perform humility or perform pride. He simply continued. There is a quiet power in that. The person who does not need to defend his choices is the person whose choices cannot be taken from him. Seneca, in his letters to Lucilius, returned again and again to the same theme. Choose your friends with the seriousness of someone who knows that the people around you will, over time, shape what you become. He was not advocating loneliness. He was advocating curation. There is an enormous difference. Loneliness is the absence of company. Curation is the deliberate selection of company that ennobles you and that you can ennoble in return. From all of this, we can extract 3 movements of a healthy boundary. First, the honest no. One sentence. Without the elaborate apology cascade that turns every refusal into a negotiation. The honest no does not invite debate. It simply states the fact. Second, the boundary that preserves regard. A no that protects you without diminishing the other person. You can decline an invitation and still wish the host well. You can leave a conversation and still respect the one you left. The boundary is for you. It is not a verdict on them. Third, the protected yes. This is the one most people miss. When your no is clean and unapologetic, your yes finally becomes meaningful. The people in your life can trust that when you show up, you genuinely chose to be there. That is the deepest gift you can give them. Presence that was not extracted, care that was not coerced, a friendship that does not survive on guilt. So let me give you 3 practices to take into your week. They are deceptively simple and quietly transformative. First, the single sentence no. The next time someone asks you for something you do not have the capacity to give, refuse in 1 sentence. No prelude, no apology cascade, no detailed justification, just 1 clean sentence. I will not be able to do that. I am not free that evening. That is not something I can take on right now. Notice the urge to add more. Notice how the urge to over-explain is almost always an attempt to get the other person to absolve you. Resist that urge. The cleaner your no, the less guilt it generates afterwards, because there is no negotiation left to replay. Second, the peace audit. At the end of each week, sit with a sheet of paper and ask 1 question. Which interactions left me stronger and which left me depleted? Not which interactions were difficult. Difficult is fine. Difficult can be valuable. The question is which ones drained your interior reserves without adding anything back. Be honest. The people who chronically deplete you are not always the people you expected. Sometimes they are the people you are most afraid to disappoint. Identify them. Do not declare war on them. Simply notice. Awareness is already the beginning of the boundary. Third, the warmth marker. After any difficult no, after any retreat from a draining situation, send 1 small signal of continued regard to the person involved. A short message, a kind word in passing, a genuine well-wish, not to take back the boundary. To prove to yourself that protecting your peace did not require you to harden your heart. This single practice will collapse the false dichotomy in your own mind faster than anything else, because you will feel, in your own body, that distance and care can coexist. Here is what no one tells you. The people who feel pushed away by your boundaries are not usually pushed away by the boundary itself. They are pushed away by the resentment, the cold shoulder, the silent treatment, the long-held grudge that we mistake for self-protection. The boundary itself, held with peace and held with warmth, almost never severs a real relationship. It only severs the relationships that were never real to begin with. And those, however painful, were always going to end. You are just ending them on your terms now instead of waiting until they ended you. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his quietest moment that men seek retreats for themselves, houses in the country, seashores and mountains. But this is wholly the mark of a man of poor taste. When at any hour you wish, you can retreat into yourself. Nowhere can a man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul. That is the work. To become the kind of person who carries an unshakable interior wherever he goes, so that no room can rob you of your composure, so that no demand can pull you from your center, so that no one, however needy, however hostile, however close, can ever again make you choose between your peace and your humanity. The fortress was never built to keep the world out. It was built so you would have somewhere to live while you went out into the world. If this video resonated, subscribe. It is the simplest way to tell me to keep making these. Until next time, be sovereign.